Welcome to Three Questions With. I'm Hugo, publisher of the Latino News Network and your host. Three Questions With is a public affairs program elevating the voices and visibility of matters most important to the Hispanic-Latino community by speaking with community and industry thought leaders on the social determinants of health and democracy. Public libraries are an invaluable resource in any community. They provide access to knowledge, information, and entertainment for people of all ages and backgrounds. From books to digital resources, public libraries offer a wide range of materials that educate, inspire, and empower individuals. Public libraries play a critical role in fostering literacy, promoting lifelong learning, and enhancing community engagement. Maria Nava is the Community Engagement Manager with the Warren Newport Public Library. She is our guest today. Maria, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's start the conversation by describing the work that you do at the Warren Newport Public Library.
Well, I'm the Community Engagement Manager at the Warren Newport Public Library. My main focus there is to really go out into the community, get to know the community, and then bring that back into the library in order to provide services and programs to better serve our community. And that means things that we can't always do in-house. That's immigration services, mental health services, any other type of health services like that we really don't have staff that focuses on that. We go out and we create these partnerships and create collaborations where we can bring in these services and really bridge those gaps that we see within our community.
You mentioned immigration being one of them. You're in Lake County. Other than immigration, what other, and you mentioned partnerships being key to the success.
Yeah.
Walk us through a little bit of one of those services and the partnerships in how you serve the public.
Okay, for instance, one of our partnerships that we have is with ASIS. One of the things that they do is really focus on immigration within our community and making sure that they have DACA services, they have services for citizenship, how to become a citizen. So they'll actually come into our library. They shut down their whole building. They come in with all their staff, interns, everything, and they will come into our library and have citizenship workshops and DACA workshops. That means an all-day workshop where they help people fill out all the paperwork, go through all the process, make sure that they are advised well legally, and make sure that they're on the right path to become a citizen or to be able to have that DACA protection. So that, for instance, that's just one of the services that we do. We'll also have something like mental health services where our partner will come in, and that will be Warren Youth and Family Services, and they'll come in and they'll do mental health workshops in one room for the parents, and in the other room, the children will be doing another activity or something so the parents can concentrate. But one of the really great partnerships that I think is really a great example of what great collaboration can do is one of the health workshops that we do. So we've done a few health workshops. The first one that we did last year was based on women's health. And what we did, it was a full service workshop. So that meant that people came in and they got the educational workshop on what mammograms mean, what pap smears mean, why they're important to your health, what cervical cancer is, what breast cancer is, the risks and all that. And they were able to receive that both in English and Spanish by health professionals. This means doctors, nurses were the ones that were giving the talk. And after that talk was done, then people were able to actually utilize what they learned immediately because they were able to make a wellness exam to get a free pap smear and a free mammogram for the people that attended. Not only that, but they also took home a bunch of resources, a bunch of free healthcare goodies. We were able to give them a lunch, everything like that. We really wanted to make sure that they walked out completely able to go and, be able to screen themselves for pap smears, be able to screen themselves with mammograms and make sure that they are on the right path to health. And actually one of the ladies that actually went, one of our partners, Equal Hope, who provided the mammograms, was really great, and they do a lot of amazing work in our community. But they actually told us that one of the young ladies that went, that she went only because it was free, everything was completely free. And she was actually diagnosed with cancer, but because it was caught so early, she was in remission. So It's like things like that where you realize that when so many people come together and really collaborate, you can really make an impact on people.
It's amazing. Health services, you mentioned immigration and DACA. Public libraries have become these centers where people gather, not just to get books or audio or visual, but also all of these services that are free. Now, when we think about the Latino community, mostly it's focused on Cook County, certainly Chicago, but there's a growing number of Latinos that are living in the suburbs, and certainly, we mentioned already Lake County. But in your job in reaching out to the community and specifically talking to Latinos that many of them foreign-born that might not see the library as a gathering place for all of these services and resources, what type of outreach do you do in chipping away some of the misconceptions of what the library is and what it can do for the community?
Well, that's actually one of my main jobs, is to actually go out into the community and interact with people, right? Because I think that's one of the misconceptions, right? That people, because they see the library, they're just going to come in and use the services. That's not true at all, right? So many people, especially if you are an immigrant in this country, you don't know everything that's offered right in the library because we don't have that in other countries. Those same system is not similar in other countries. So when they come here, they don't know that a library provides all these services besides just books and internet or computer use. So one of my jobs is to go out into the community, to go to other outreach events where I can find that community and invite them into our house, right? Invite them into the library and be like, listen, come visit us because we have this. You can check out a hotspot. You can sign up for mental health services. You can sign up for immigration services. You can come to our events where we have free backpacks, free school supplies. Like, my job is to go out there and invite them in so that they can come in. And then another one of the things that I do is to really celebrate the community, right? And one of the ways to do that is to do cultural celebrations. So I do a Hispanic Heritage celebration. I also do a Black History Month celebration. And one of the main reasons that I do that is because we want to make sure that our, brown, Black community see themselves identified, see themselves welcome and celebrated, right? And what's the best way to celebrate or welcome someone is to learn about them, to share with them, right? So we learn through music, through art, through reading. So we provide these celebrations so that we can come together and just gain this greater understanding. Because when we know more about each other, when we celebrate each other, we're able to really understand each other and build stronger communities, right? Because we're like, I want to be part of this. I want to celebrate you. I want to learn from you, And right now I'm actually currently in the middle of planning my Black History Month. So that's coming up next month. So we're really excited about that.
That's wonderful. Absolutely. Building bridges between different communities that are separated, whether it's by language, race, ethnicity, background. Now let's go to the second part that I wanted to ask you about in the next question. Let's talk about Future Leaders Alliance. It's a mentor group you co-founded for students in your community who need support and guidance as they embark on their journey towards higher education. Tell us about that.
So that was actually a group that I co-founded when I was at my previous job in Round Lake. I worked at a school district, and I worked in the administrative department. So that meant that parents, families would often come in thinking that administration meant that that's where they would go, like, for any help with any school-related questions, but that's actually where, the admins are, where we do the finance or we do the human resource. So that's not really where parents go. They had to go to the schools, but it was just a misconception. So we would get a lot of parents. And as a Spanish speaker working there, and the majority of our parents in that community are Spanish speakers, my job was to tell them, you're in the wrong place. This is where you have to go. Oftentimes, so many of the parents would tell me, I already went there and they weren't able to help me. I already went to that school, so that's why I'm here. And then they sent me here, not knowing exactly where to get that information. And I'm like, listen, I have the information. It's going to take me 2 seconds to give it to you. I'm just going to give it to you, So it started like that, where people needed information. I was able to give it to them. but I just didn't have the time within my work hours to do it. So that's when I actually started volunteering with one of our community engagement specialists there at the district. I really started to get involved through that, seeing that there was potential there. And people started hearing, like if you need help, you can go and ask her and she'll help you. I'll share my phone number and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I'm getting the same question from a bunch of people, and it's just a matter of being able to relay that information in a good way where I'm not like answering them in the phone call. So I'm like, okay. And that's where that idea developed of how do we get this information, because parents want their kids on a better path. They want them to achieve this higher education. So how do we help them with that? So then with my sister, actually, with my older sister, I developed this group, and we started doing workshops for parents and for kids on, a bunch of different subjects from what you have to do in school, what classes you have to take to get on a path to higher education, when you have to apply for scholarships, the scholarships that are out there. We started doing portfolios for them so that they were ready to school. So it was just a whole bunch of different workshops. Really, the main goal was to get them to a path of higher education, because I knew the difference of having that paper and not having it. I had lived it already, and I didn't want other people to live it, right? And I think that was my main driving force. Like, I have the knowledge, I can give it to you. It doesn't take much, so let's do this. And that's where that developed.
That's wonderful. You're drawing from your lived experiences and making it easier for others on that path to get higher education, which of course unlocks doors of opportunity. You mentioned mentoring and mentorship and how that's influenced you so positively. You were a cohort in the 2023 Multi-Leadership Academy that is hosted by the Latino Policy Forum. Tell us about that experience.
I can honestly tell you that was a life-changing experience. I will forever be grateful that I was able to not only be a part of it, but be able to meet all the extraordinary people that were a part of it and that have formed it, like Sylvia Puente, to be able to be there and to be able to share with other brown and Black leaders these experiences that we have lived through to get to where we are, to be able to learn from them, it's absolutely invaluable. You're not just going there to learn from people on a superficial level. You're there to truly connect and to make lifelong friendships, partnerships with the people that are there with you. I know that at any point I can take my phone and call any of my cohort members and they're going to be willing to help me. That's just the kind of relationship that was developed there. Sylvia, the whole team, one of the greatest things that I think I take away from that I learned is the power of transformational leadership, right? The power of one person touching another person and how they can change and affect that person and how that person is going to turn around and change and affect so many other people. To truly understand the power that we each hold was really eye-opening, right? Because I think a lot of times, especially as brown and Black people, we don't understand the power that we hold.
It's like a domino effect, right? One person touches another, and now you create a foundation to draw from. Because as we talked off camera, sometimes in the work that you do and the work that I do, we feel very isolated. We feel like we're the only ones. We feel like, and often we're the only ones in the room. To now have this group of support to draw from their lived experiences as you're paving the way in the work that you do is so important. So. Thank you very much. We're talking to Maria Nava, Community Engagement Manager with the Warren Newport Public Library. When we come back, this Mexican native and Lake County resident will share with us what inspired her to do the work that she does today.
I'm Kimberly Loftus. On the next edition of In the Money, we'll discuss retirement. You can't avoid it. So we'll get you retirement ready with my guests, Angela Giles and Charlene Reinhardt.
Start with the savings account. Why? Because you will need the money later to start investing.
Join the conversation Thursday at 7 p.m. on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the CAN TV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
We've been talking to Maria Nava, the Community Engagement Manager of the Warren Newport Public Library, about building stronger, united communities by providing equitable access to resources. Now we're going to get to know you a little bit better. Like I mentioned before, you're a native of Mexico. You grew up in Lake County. Tell us about your upbringing and some of those lived experiences that influence the work that you're doing today.
Well, I'm a first-generation immigrant. My parents came here with my older sister and me. We were very young, 3 and 4. So as you can imagine, as first-generation immigrant with young parents, they were very young themselves. It was a difficult upbringing. You know, we were in a new country. We didn't know the language. We didn't know the culture. We didn't know a lot, you know, and I think one of the hardest things is that we didn't know people, you know, so we didn't really know where to go for help. We didn't know that there was help out there. You know, we, as many immigrants, I think, we lived in fear so many times because when my parents did try to, you know, get help or try to go out there to get services, a lot of times, unfortunately, because of their lack of the English language, they would face a lot of harsh comments, you know, and again, that would be back to, okay, then no one wants to help us, like, we'll figure this out on our own. And unfortunately, that meant we went through very hard things that, you know, should have been relatively easy, we had to climb mountains for. And that's one of the things that really drives me, right? Because when I was in school, I didn't know where to go, you know, to go to college. I didn't know what resources there was. I didn't know how to apply. I didn't know if there were scholarships, how to get those, because no one tells you this, because to people that grew up here in the United States, generations, you know, that's common knowledge to them, that's common sense to them. They know, you know, what to do right after college, what to do during high school to get yourself to college. Unfortunately, my sister and I didn't know any of that. We didn't have that insight. So we struggled a lot, you know. We struggled to be able to go to school. We struggled to be able to complete our degrees, and something that should have taken us a short amount of time, it took us an insurmountable amount of time, you know? But little by little, we did it. It actually took me over a decade to get my bachelor's degree, you know, being able to take one class at a time whenever I could, but knowing that I needed to get there. So as I grew up and I was actually, you know, establishing in my career and stuff, and like I said, and when I worked at the district and I saw that need, I was like, I know what that feels like, and it's not a good feeling. I know what it feels like to be alone. I know what it feels like to not know where to go and to not know who to turn to, you know? And I didn't want other people to go through that because I already went through it, and I don't want other people to go through it. And I think that's what drives a lot of my work, is that when I go out into the community and I see the need, right, of a parent or of a child, I see my parents, I see myself, I see my sister, and I want to make sure that if I can help them and I have the ability to, why not? You know, it's as simple as sharing knowledge, creating those connections with these organizations that have the resources, right, that have the services, and making sure that other people don't have to struggle needlessly for no reason, you know, when the resources are there and when we can all come together and really, you know, when we come together, I think the biggest thing that I have learned, and this is also something from the Latino Policy Forum, right, from our graduation, one of our speakers told us, he said, and I wish I could remember his name, he's one of the aldermen from Chicago, but it really impacted me what he said. He said, if you take anything away from what I'm saying, is that we do more when we come together and collaborate instead of worrying who gets the credit, right? And I think a lot of times, so many times, organizations, unfortunately, are not doing what they're supposed to be doing to share the resources or things like that, because everyone's worried about, oh, who's going to get the credit for this or that, instead of let's just give these resources, let's just help people, let's just come together and make sure that we are helping our community to rise up.
And that's exactly what you're doing. I think, again, you are inspirational and aspirational. So many people, like you said, you see yourself in them, and for you to create spaces and resources for them to lift themselves up is so very important. And what an incredible lesson to learn. We win and lose together, and we build by collaborating. We're building a much stronger foundation for not just success in the short term, but in the long term. It takes a village a lot of times in order to achieve success. A lot of what you said really resonates, right? You're helping others because you see yourself, you see your sister, you understand what it takes to navigate what is often, especially for someone who's foreign-born, what can seem like a labyrinth in order to achieve success. You talked about mentoring and how important that is, and one of the things that you mentioned was how to ignore the noise in looking to best serve the public. As someone, people who are watching us, listening to your story, what's the best advice you can give to someone who, like yourself, is looking to best serve the public, but often feels isolated and feels like they're swimming upstream?
I think my best advice would be to find your people. And what I mean by that is find mentors that believe in your vision, that understand your vision, that have been, through similar experiences. That means find mentees that you can impact, that can further the vision that you have for your community, but share with your mentors, share with your mentees. You never know who you're gonna have that conversation with and what great idea is gonna come through that, right? What great collaboration is gonna come through that. But that's my advice. Find your people, because just like with anything, right, we're human. You're always gonna find criticism. You're always gonna find opposition, pushback. That's human, right? We're always pushing for our own ideas or for our own visions or ideals, right? So yes, you're gonna enter rooms where you see that pushback or you feel that pushback. But one of the things that I always go when I go into a room is that I know that I never go by myself, right? I'm like, when I enter a room, I enter with all those people behind me. I enter with all the great women and all the great men that have come before me, that have taught me, that I have learned from, whether I've known you, whether, you knew me, you've impacted me, There's people that have impacted me because I've talked to them one-on-one, And then there's people that I'll never get to know. They'll never know me. The women in my family that came generations before me, they carved the path to be where I'm at. I don't know their name, but they walk with me. And that strength is what I take in on your room. And that's what I think of, I made it this far, I made it this far and they've made it further. So I'm not alone and I rely on that strength.
That is incredibly profound, right? When we show up, we're not just showing up as ourselves. We are showing up our parents and those people that came before us, and there's strength in numbers. That is really strong. I really appreciate you sharing that. I think you're absolutely right. We live in a society, especially a culture in this country, where it's a race and a singular race to the top. But we come from a culture of collaboration, and it takes a village, and it's that collaboration that builds a solid foundation for not just singular success, but the success of our people, of our community. Maria, thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for sharing with me.
You're welcome. When we come back, la última palabra, my final thoughts on the resistance of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives.
This week on Change Agents, we'll meet some leaders who embody the concept of leading with love and are working hard to empower our youth to become agents of change and leaders in their communities.
Love inspires. It inspires. Lead with love keeps me going.
Join me Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on CanTV 19, stream us live on cantv.org, or watch us on the CanTV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
And now, la última palabra, the last word on the resistance of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Diversity initiatives in the workplace are essential components of modern organizations. They foster an environment that promotes inclusivity, equality, and respect for all individuals, regardless of their backgrounds. Still, some argue that diversity initiatives are unnecessary or detrimental to business operations. Experts in the resistance to social change efforts wrote an article for Harvard Business Review stating that the key to overcoming resistance to any effort is figuring out why people are resistant in the first place. When it comes to DEI initiatives, they argue people resist because they experience at least one of three forms of threat, and depending on the kind of threat they experience, they tend to engage in three types of resistance. DEI initiatives often involve significant organizational changes, which can cause threats and concerns among members of majority groups. These individuals have historically benefited from being in the majority and may feel that their organizational status or resources are at risk. This phenomenon is known as status threat. It leads them to perceive diversity initiatives as a zero-sum, assuming that any gains made by minority groups will result in losses for the majority. Additionally, some group members fear that DEI initiatives imply their achievements are solely due to their group membership rather than their skills and qualities. This fear, referred to as merit threat, arises when advantaged groups members feel that recognizing bias and discrimination undermines their accomplishments. Lastly, majority group members may experience a moral threat, which stems from the belief that acknowledging their privilege tarnishes their moral image by associating themselves with an unfair system. The majority group members exhibit three primary forms of resistance in response to these threats. When majority group members experience one or more of these threats, they respond with three primary forms of resistance. The majority group members, when feeling threatened, may engage in defensive behavior to protect their status. This can involve efforts to legitimize and maintain the current status quo, preventing changes that may be perceived as detrimental to their group. Resistance to DEI initiatives can manifest in various ways, such as minimizing or denying the existence of inequality or bias. Denial is often observed when individuals from majority groups experience both status threat and merit threat. In some instances, individuals from advantaged groups may acknowledge the presence of discrimination and equality but distance themselves from it personally. They argue they are unbiased and have never benefited from discriminatory practices. And to overcome resistance to DEI, understand what's driving it, the authors also offer suggestions for how to overcome resistance to change. I encourage you to read the article. And that does it for this edition of 3 Questions With, a collaboration by Illinois Latino News and CanTV. LNN is dedicated to best serving Hispanic Latinos with local multimedia news and information websites across the U.S., including Illinois Latino News, a statewide community-focused initiative. I invite you to look us up on our websites and chat with us via social media. Tell us what you think about the topics we talked about today, and please send me suggestions about what you think we should talk about in the future. Because of the Latino News Network, you're more than just our audience, you are our contributors. I'm Hugo. Thank you all for watching.